Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Katz, the president of Reach Out America. It always amazes me how much can really happen in 1 month. Here's an update of some of the highlights since we last met. Well, Russia invaded the Ukraine. Millions of innocent people are now fleeing the country and are refugees. It's really heartbreaking to see how many people are being killed. The Ukrainians have shown their courage and spirit through this unwarranted invasion. Many countries besides the United States are involved in sanctions against Russia. Even Switzerland has gotten involved. That's a new one. The US has stopped all imports of oil, gas, and coal, and the Russian stock market has lost over 40%, as well as their economy. All Russian banks have had their assets frozen. So let's hope that it has a strong impact on Putin and he stops this invasion. Last week, President Biden gave a powerful and inspiring State of the Union. It was encouraging to me to see Republicans standing up with Democrats in solidarity for portions of his speech. This is something we haven't seen in many, many years. Let's hope that it's a new trend and this continues. So now on the domestic scene, President Biden nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson for Supreme Court. She has a lot of experience, is extremely well qualified for this position. And Kathleen Rice announced that she'll not be running for re-election. So now there's another critical Democratic seat open for Congress. In Florida, the Don't Say Gay bill was voted on yesterday and it passed. It's now headed to the desk of Governor Ron DeSantis, who has indicated that he's going to support this bill. However, Generation Zers are protesting big time. They're not going to let their rights be taken away silently. So this has been an extremely rough time, no matter what President Biden seems to do. He's actually done a lot this year, like a lot, but the Republicans refuse to support him and his policies. And now many Republicans are even supporting Putin. Go figure. I don't know how they're still in office. To me, that's like totally anti-democratic and kind of treasonous. So we'll see what happens. But let's hope next month proves to have much better news. But on a high note, tonight, we're very privileged to have a wonderful guest speaker, Long Island native Liuba Grechen Shirley. She is the founder and CEO of Vote Mama. It's the nation's first political action committee dedicated to electing progressive moms up and down the ballot. In 2018, Liuba ran a historic congressional campaign to represent New York's 2nd District in the United States House of Representatives. She's appeared on CNN, The Today Show, MSNBC, and has been featured in the Washington Post, Time Magazine, and the Huffington Post. So please welcome Liuba Grechen Shirley.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. So as Patty mentioned, I ran for Congress in 2018 against Peter King. It was pretty much the last thing I thought I would do. I had 2 babies at the time. They were 1 and 3. And I grew up on Long Island, but I lived in the city for a long time. And frankly, I moved back out here when my daughter was 1 for childcare. My mom is here, and my mom was my built-in childcare. And I was not planning on running. I had the kids with me full time until 3:30 when my mom would come home from school. She's now retired, thankfully, but she was still teaching then, and she would watch them at 3:30. And I was consulting from home, and I was making it all work with that schedule. And then the 2016 election happened, and I needed to get involved. And our local Democratic Party was not doing very much on Long Island. And I ended up starting an indivisible group and organizing actions and protests, and again, was not planning on running. But I had a representative who had been in office since I was 12 and had consistently voted to hurt people in our district and across the country. And I jumped into that race with 2 small children. It is a very different experience running for office with young kids. There is a reason that we have so few moms serving in Congress. When I launched Vote Mama, it was actually only 5% of our congressional representatives are moms with kids 18 or younger. We are now up to 7%. But during my campaign, about 6 months into the campaign, I put a request in to the Federal Election Commission. and I asked if I could use some of my funds for childcare, some of my campaign funds that I was raising for childcare. And everyone told me I was nuts. They said it was political suicide and that I would be attacked as a woman. But I didn't have a choice. There is a very real reason that we have so many millionaires in Congress and people who don't actually understand how most of the policies affect people because they don't live with those policies every day. So I put this request in. Hillary Clinton wrote in support. 25 members of Congress wrote in support. It was a bipartisan, unanimous decision, and it changed the way that federal candidates run for office. We've now seen more than 50 federal candidates use their campaign funds for childcare, moms and dads and Democrats and Republicans. And there was actually a 311% increase in the funds used from the 2018 to the 2020 cycles. The majority of funds have been used by women and by candidates of color, and it's one small structural change that has the ability to change the political landscape. After my campaign, I cried for a day and then immediately kept thinking back to what the support that I really needed in the beginning of the campaign. And it was the women who had done it before that had made the biggest difference for me. The people who had run for office at all levels of government with small children that were the most supportive. And I wanted to provide that support to other moms running. I launched Vote Mama PAC in March of 2019. We're literally celebrating our 3-year anniversary right now. So it launched in March of 2019, and Hillary Clinton and Kathy Hochul came to our launch event. And I remember wondering whether or not we were going to have to recruit candidates. And Hillary answered a FaceTime call from her grandchildren during this event. It went viral and ended up on Colbert. My mom ended up screaming and calling me at midnight that we were on Colbert. And we got hundreds of applications from moms running around the country. And it was incredible to have those conversations. I will tell you from my own personal experience, when you talk to a PAC, you tell them everything is great with your campaign. You talk about how much money you've raised, how many endorsements you have, your path to victory. You get a check, you get an endorsement, and you never really hear from them again for the most part. There are a few PACs that stay involved, but for the most part, it's not the support that you need. And I wanted to really get involved at a very early level in people's campaigns, just as they're launching, if we can, and provide as much support as possible. In the last 3 years, we have now supported over 250 Democratic moms running from school board to Senate.
That's
We have
very exciting.
we got another over 150 applications for this next round. We're actually going through the endorsement process. We will be going through interviews for the next 2 months. We're rolling them out in waves because we've gotten so many applications. So it's pretty incredible. And I got to tell you, one of my favorite things is I can't tell you how many moms we've had literally burst into tears in the interview process because they feel it's a safe space to talk about what it's really like to run with young children. We had a state Senate candidate that we were about to announce our endorsement for, Francois Alabas. She's running in New York. And she was at a local Democratic Club meeting in Brooklyn. She was asked not once, but twice, how can she be a senator and a mom at the same time? Twice she was asked this. And we helped her get some press. We helped her respond. We actually shared the clip from this meeting, and we got a Democratic Club that hadn't tweeted in 3 years to respond. And we really try to get involved and help our candidates whenever they're dealing with issues like this. Every one of our candidates has heard, who will watch your kids while you campaign? How can you do this as a mom? Are you hurting your kids? How can you be there for your constituents? It's always a question that moms get asked, and men never get asked this question. Men, when they have young children in particular, are considered more responsible. They are considered, somebody who understands the needs of their district and their constituents, and women are always doubted. So we really wanted to not only provide support for candidates, but normalize what it looks like to run and to serve as a mom. Most women don't get into leadership positions until they're in their 60s or their 70s. Men are there in their 20s and their 30s, and it's because of childcare. So launched this PAC, we have put together this amazing advisory committee, people like Representatives Katie Porter, Grace Meng, Gwen Moore, Kim Schreier. Kathy Hochul was actually our very first advisory committee member. I remember when I was thinking of launching Vote Mama, I called Kathy, and she sat on the phone with me for an hour and just talked through what I wanted to do. And she was the first person to sign on to the advisory committee. And we have an amazing advisory committee who helps mentor our candidates. So our candidates get funding, they get mentorship, they get support. we've literally helped our candidates do everything from putting together a finance plan to hiring staff, to hiring a babysitter, to figuring out how to use their campaign funds for childcare, to figuring out their messaging, to putting fundraisers together. It's we try to provide as much wraparound support as possible. And the pack was so successful in the first year. And I started to think there's only so much you can do to support these candidates, to get more women to run, to get more moms to run. We actually have to break down the structural barriers and the cultural barriers. And that's really when we launched the foundation. I launched the foundation as the pandemic was starting, as I was having my third child in April of 2020. All of this happened at the same time. The long term goal of our foundation is to pass universal childcare. The way that we get there is to get more moms in office. So, my FEC ruling approved the use of campaign funds for childcare for all federal candidates. We actually now have to go state by state to get this approved for state and local candidates. So we set out with the goal of getting this approved in all 50 states by 2023. We're currently at 26 states. 15 have passed legislation, 10 have approved it through an ethics ruling, one has approved it through an attorney general ruling. We've introduced legislation in 14 states this year, this leg session alone, which is only 3 months into this legislative session, so that's pretty incredible. And we are on track to hit all 50 states by next year. So that is really making a massive difference in terms of who gets to run for office. We've heard from so many candidates who've said, I would never have considered running if I wasn't able to use my campaign funds for childcare. And then the other steps that we're doing now on the foundation side, we have launched the State of Motherhood Project. It's a state of motherhood census. So we've done the research at the federal level to really look at who are the moms with young kids. Nobody has that data at the state level. So we put together a survey that's going out to all women state legislators across the country. It's gone out to most of the country. Midwestern states are getting it next week. And there are sections for moms, for those who are caregivers, and for those who are women without children. And it's really getting into the personal look at what it's like to run and to serve with children, and to look at the resources.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
My watch is talking to me. Sorry. It looks into the resources that they receive. You know, is there a lactation room? Is there a changing table in the Capitol? Is there childcare? How far are you from the Capitol? Is there a women's caucus? Is there a mom's caucus? All of, whether or not there's remote voting, all of these things that you wouldn't naturally think of, but that make a huge difference in terms of the experience of being a mom and a legislator. So we're looking also at the barriers that they face. It really will be the first nationwide demographic data set of all women state legislators, and I am so excited about this. And we are also looking at legislation that is passed in each of these states. So have they codified Roe? Have they passed paid family leave? Do they have universal pre-K? And do they have full day kindergarten? And we're looking at how those pieces of legislation correlate with how many moms are serving in the state legislature. And we're going to release a number of reports around that. We actually released a report last year about our work on campaign funds for childcare. We're the only organization in the country who's tracking the usage of campaign funds for childcare, as well as attempting to get this passed. And we are about to launch an action fund. This is our C4 arm. So you'll be hearing about this around Mother's Day. And this is really, my director of campaigns explained this. She used a term. I'm going to try to think of what she said. It's like self-help. No, self. I'm gonna remember this term because it was like self-healing, like for civic participation. It's not. I will get you the right term because it was so perfectly described. It's basically making it easier for volunteers to get involved. There are a lot of people who don't want to run for office, and there are a lot of people who don't have a lot of money to donate to candidates, but they want to get involved. And we want to bring those people in and have them have as many options to participate as possible. If they want to knock on doors, if they want to make phone calls, if they want to volunteer for our candidates, if they want to call their legislators and help us get the legislation passed, we really want to help people become advocates and make it easier for them to participate. I can't tell you how many moms I know personally who would like to get more involved and can't because, they might want to go to a town hall meeting, but it's at the same time as bedtime. And they might want to go to a school board meeting, but they don't have childcare or they're working at the time. And we want to make it as easy as possible for people to participate. So that will be launching around Mother's Day. And that is Vote Mama in a nutshell. I can keep talking. I can tell you many things, or I can open it up for questions.
If you want to keep talking, that would be great. If not, maybe what we could do is some questions, and then you could maybe lead on to some other aspects of what you've done in the past, because I love reading all the different things you've done. The first question that I know a few of us, well, actually, before I go into questions, let me just tell the people that are participating this evening that are here attending, that there's a Q&A button on the bottom, and don't go into the chat, just go into the Q&A, please. If you have a question, type it in and I'll try to read it. Hopefully we'll get to everybody's question. I have questions from the board that we come up with to give you guys out there time to write your own questions. So the first question the board and I wanted to know is, would you ever consider running again?
I will. I definitely will. It was probably the hardest decision of my life when Peter King retired, and I woke up at like 7, which was late for me that day, and my phone had voicemail was full. There were hundreds of text messages, and my campaign manager called me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I had no idea what had happened. And I looked and I realized, and I had to make the decision, and I could have run, but what I'm building with Vote Mama has so much more ability to make change in the country than one vote in Congress, and I couldn't give it up. And I just started it. It was new. I wanted it to succeed and become this national organization. We now have 6 full-time staff members, multiple consultants, 9 research fellows, and we've supported over 250 moms. And that we're changing legislation across the country. And I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to make it easier for working people to run for office, for moms to run for office. We have horrific policies. Our policies have failed women and family for generations, and it's infuriating to watch. And so I could run again, and I could be one vote in Congress, or I could change things nationally. I want to do that first, but I will absolutely run again once Vote Mama is even bigger and I can hand it over to somebody else.
Well, that's great. And well, certainly let us know early on, and so we can support you in any way that we can.
I will.
That's fantastic. It's so inspiring to hear what you're doing, because you clearly, as you were speaking, you really are making a difference, and you really are, the ripples are really getting out there, and you're changing the whole dynamic for so many people. It's just fabulous. And I'm happy to hear that you have so many staff and it's really growing. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's changing the mentality and the mindset, which I think is the biggest aspect of what we're doing. Anytime I would talk about childcare or paid family leave during my campaign, I kid you not, someone would always say, ignore the women's issues and stick to the bread and butter issues. And it would infuriate me, because before the pandemic, we were losing $57 billion a year because of the lack of childcare. Childcare is one of the most basic economic issues our country faces. It's basic infrastructure. And yet for the longest time, it was always looked at as a women's issue. And so women are being pushed out of the workforce in droves, millions of women over the pandemic. And I still remember my first experience when I was pregnant and I didn't have access to paid family leave. I couldn't get off of any childcare wait lists. And by the time you realize how terrible our policies are, you're a new mom and you don't really have the time to go out and fight for systemic change. And that's what we're doing. We are building an army of people who can fight for systemic change. And just building the relationships with other moms who are doing this, that to watch is critical. It's critical because so many people running for office, I always tell people you have to be slightly crazy to do it. And you have to develop a really thick skin. And it's really isolating. And you don't realize that because you are working 18 hours a day. You don't have time for your family. You don't have time for your friends. You are completely in it. And you usually don't even have time to talk to other candidates. But when you start to develop relationships with other candidates, and you actually, so many people have group text chains of candidates across the country, that support and that network and being able to just talk to somebody who gets it because they've been through it before or they're going through it currently, it's necessary. The old boys network is alive and well, and we're building the mamas network.
That's fantastic. It's very empowering, right? That's a great position to be in. Which candidates in Vote Mama PAC are supporting for 2022 for the elections?
Yeah, so we are. I will give you a heads up because we actually are not announcing our federal candidates until next week. But I'll give you a few of them. Jasmine Beach Ferrara is actually somebody we've already been supporting. We jumped into Jasmine's race. We were talking to Jasmine before she decided to run. So we endorsed her on day one when she announced that she's running against Madison Cawthorn in North Carolina's 14th.
Oh,
Um, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he is terrifying. He is the one who said the next insurrection, there will be more bloodshed. He absolutely cannot be in Congress. He is a dangerous person who supported the insurrection and is.
And there are too many of those. That's the
There
scary.
are too many of them. There are a few that are extra scary. He is one of them. So
Okay.
Jasmine is running against him. She is kicking ass. She is exactly the type of person that we need in office. She is a mom of 3. She is an LGBTQ advocate. She has, she's a county commissioner. She is a minister. I mean, she is just really, she gets the community, and I'm in awe of her all the time. So Jasmine is one of my favorites. Hillary Skolton was actually one of our candidates that we supported last cycle in Michigan's 3rd district. The district was just redrawn and it's much more democratic. And so Hillary is running again and has a lot of support. And I am certain she's going to win this time. Annie
Okay.
Andrews in South Carolina's 1st district. She is a pediatrician. She's absolutely wonderful. And I'm very excited about that race as well. Laura Gillen, we haven't
Oh,
announced
yeah,
this
yeah.
yet, but Laura Gillen is running for Kathleen's seat. And
Yes,
I think,
I read that in the paper. It was actually in Newsday.
yeah, Laura
Yeah.
is wonderful. We supported Laura when she first ran for town supervisor, and she's just absolutely incredible. So we're behind Laura. Tammy Duckworth, Carolyn Bordeaux, Cindy Axne, Grace Meng, Nikema Williams. And then there are a lot of Secretary of State races, and these are the races I think between the midterms and now the Secretary of State races, they're critical. So Chelsea Clark is running for Secretary of State in Ohio, Anna Valencia in Illinois, and then Jocelyn Benson is the current Secretary of State running for re-election in Michigan. And these seats are critical. Maggie Toulouse Oliver in New Mexico, she got death threats last cycle, literally got death threats and had to move out of her house with her son to keep him safe. And these women are critical to making sure that our votes are heard, that the election will not be overthrown. Trump is supporting their opponents because he wants to make sure that when he runs in 2024, he wants to try to steal the election. And the Secretary of State races, a lot of people don't understand how critical they are and how Republicans are attacking them. And they're necessary. We absolutely have to make sure that we are supporting those candidates. We are going to go all in for these 4 in particular and make sure that they win. It's necessary for our democracy. Nothing else matters. Of all the policies that we care about, nothing else matters if our vote does not count. So the Secretary of State races are critical. We are going to be announcing, we actually haven't even started the state level races, the endorsement interviews. So we're going to start those next week. Tomorrow we're talking to Attorney General candidates. We're supporting Jen Jordan, who's running for Attorney General in Georgia, also a critical race. Nikita Hemingway is running for Commissioner of Agriculture in Georgia, and Nicole Horn is running for Labor Commissioner. Now, normally you would not think that those positions are exciting. You have to talk to these 2 candidates. They will make you fully understand why these roles are so important and how they actually affect people's everyday lives. And I have never gotten more excited about an agriculture, a labor commissioner role ever until I talked to the 2 of them. So we think they're amazing. And then we will be announcing our state candidates as the next few weeks roll out.
Okay, that's great. You sound very busy. Got a lot going on.
We have never been this busy. I will tell you, it's pretty incredible. It's back to back, back to back, but it's great.
And it's so necessary right now. It really is. What you're doing is absolutely vital, for shifting our government. How can a woman start the process of running for a local office?
It depends what you're running for, but the first thing is to realize it's not rocket science. I will tell you the one thing I think I took away, which was like my biggest takeaway from running, is that I used to think that elected officials were so smart, knew everything, understood all the policies, and then you run for office and you realize they're really not. And all that matters is that you genuinely care and that you can read and that you can understand the policies. That's it. It's really not that difficult. It depends what you're running for. You have to file your paperwork. You have to get your signatures. I would say if you're a mom, first thing you should do is reach out to Vote Mama. We can help. But there are, there's a lot of paperwork and all of that that you have to deal with, and it changes for what seat you're running for. But I remember I had no idea how to start. And I filed my paperwork, I got an attorney, I got a compliance firm, and I remember being told that I had to raise at least $100,000 before anyone would take me seriously. I don't come from a wealthy family. I've worked for nonprofits and international development my whole life. I had no idea how I would do that. I sat and I dialed. I did call time and I called everybody that I had ever known in my life, and I raised 126,000 in 2 months, hired staff, and then we outraised Peter King, raised over $2 million. And so it's hard, but it's wonderful, and everybody should run for office at some point in their lives. But really talk to other people on the ground, get to know your constituents, get to know what the issues are that matter to the people in your district. Your job as a representative is to represent the people in your district. Too many people run for the wrong reasons. They run for the title, they run for the power. They don't run because they want to make a difference. So many of the moms that we have talked to have run because of one particular reason. I think that's my favorite part of talking to all these candidates. They all decided to get into it because there was one thing where they either reached out to their local representative, or they tried to get help, they tried to get support, and they were blown off, or they were told no. And that's when they realized, you know what, I could do this better. I can actually fix this. And that's when they run for office. And that's the truth. If there's an issue in your community that you want to fix, run for office.
Yale has a program for women who want to run for office that they actually train you and give you lots of different advice, I guess, how, help you with debating, help you with writing speeches. Are there any programs that you know of in Long Island that do the same type of thing?
Emerge, there's not really a strong Emerge program on Long Island. In New York there isn't, but you can always sign up for Vote Run Lead. Vote Run Lead has a great training program. You can do that online.
Vote what?
Vote Run Lead.
Vote from, okay.
Vote Run Lead is based in New York, and they have training programs. If you're not in New York, Emerge is strong across the country, and they have some great training programs. Honestly, I participated in plenty of training programs. You learn more just by doing. You learn more by talking to people who've done it before. As a candidate, you have two roles. Your role is to raise money, and your role is to talk to voters. Everything else your staff should be doing. And that, I think, is one thing that we really talk to our candidates about. There are only two things that only you can do. Everything else can be delegated to your staff. Your staff should be doing that. If you don't have a staff because you're running for a very local seat, that's different. You have lots of volunteers around you, and you're working to actually make a difference and to raise the funds that you need. But raising funds, talking to voters, knocking on doors, making phone calls, that's it.
Okay. Do you think a groundswell of women voters will help our country swing more left?
God, I hope so. I don't know if that's the right answer, but it depends what women voters. White women got Trump elected, so it depends. It depends who are the voters. We need people to vote who this is the real problem. You can convince people to vote, but there are so many people who know that their vote doesn't matter, and that is really what is sad to me, because there are so many, and particularly on Long Island, there are so many local races that your vote really doesn't matter, that the local party has already decided who will win. And a lot of the local races are, made in backroom deals. And so people understand that their vote doesn't matter because they're voting. There are plenty of times where there's a local candidate running and they're running on every party line. There are plenty of times where somebody might have wanted to run, but the local party made sure that they didn't run. So we need to make sure that, in states where there are strong county committees, join your county committee. Make sure that you are participating in that aspect, because that is really how you start to make sure that your voice is heard and that democracy actually works properly in your area. But we have to make sure that people understand that their vote does matter at the federal level in particular, but we also have to make sure that their vote actually matters for these local seats.
Right. I totally agree with that. I had somebody say to me the other day, they know how I how I feel about politics and voting, and he said, I've never voted. I guess you're gonna be really angry at me. And I just turned to him, I said, well, actually, I feel badly for you. It just means you don't feel like you count. Yeah. And that was my answer. It's always irked me that people don't feel look at what you've done. When you're talking, I'm thinking the power of one person. How much it
The
did,
power
well,
of a pissed
seriously,
off, no, it's true. The power of a pissed off mom.
right,
That's
that's it. That's totally it. And you ran with it.
yeah.
And now you've created, I always say ripples, you just created these beautiful rings of, that are going out there. So anyway, it's great. Well, this is an interesting question. How can we articulate the fact that women hold up half the world, but really do way more than half?
Oh goodness, we do so much. Um,
I love that question.
um, I don't have the answer, unfortunately. The odd thing is that there's a bit of a reckoning right now, especially with the pandemic, and people are realizing how difficult it's been, and especially for moms, and people are finally starting to talk about this more. And in our last presidential debate, there was actually a question on childcare and paid family leave. And there are now these calculators where you can put in the hours that you do certain things and realize what your salary would be as a stay-at-home mother. There's conversations about it. Honestly, you have to talk about it and you have to be open about it to actually make any change. Getting more moms into office, that's one huge way that we change this. But so much of the bulk of childcare falls on women, and we need to normalize what it looks like for men to participate. You know what? There are 71 countries in the world that have paid paternity leave. We don't even have paid maternity leave, but 71 countries have paid paternity leave. And study after study shows that when you have paid paternity leave, and when it's okay, when it's normalized for men to stay home with their children, that men actually take a much bigger role in their kids' lives and in housework, and it's much more equal. And that is necessary. Men in this country, even if they have paid family leave, they're lucky if they get 2 weeks. There are a couple of companies, Ernst and Young has 4 months, but most men get about 2 weeks. And even if they, have that, many don't want to take it because they're immediately judged. They're passed over for promotion, and it's looked down upon for a man to take paternity leave. More men in power, especially CEOs, need to make sure that they're taking paternity leave to actually model that for other men, to make it the norm for other men to take that. And we need to do things like pass paid family leave. We need to pass universal childcare and universal pre-K. And it's just a matter of slowly changing the conversation. Um, there isn't a magical answer to that question. It's slow cultural changes.
Okay. I love this question. If there's a man and a woman candidate and the man is more qualified, who would you support?
I would never, this is actually an interesting question because there are a lot of people who think that we would only support a woman because she's a mother. And that is not the case. Being a mother it can make you a better candidate. It can make you understand these issues, and it can make you a much better multitasker. But we support candidates who are good candidates for the district, those who are running great races, who also are mothers. And I think people misunderstand that sometimes, where they think they'll just pick the mom in the race. There are some moms who are terrible. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a mom. Lauren Boebert is a mom. I would never support them. There are moms who will jump into a race and not do what's necessary to actually run a serious race. We won't get involved in those races. So if there was a man who was more qualified and a mom who is not qualified and not running the race, I personally would support the man. Vote Mama would not, because Vote Mama doesn't support men. Vote Mama only supports moms. But it makes a difference if you're a good candidate for that district and you're also a mom. Because usually there are wonderful candidates who get discredited just because they're a mom. And that is the problem. That we have so many incredible candidates who are moms, and so many people don't even take them seriously and don't think they have the time to commit.
Okay. This is part 2 of this question. If the candidate is a woman who's Republican, but a good candidate, would you support her?
Never. No.
Okay, we draw the line.
So the PAC, our nonprofit, our foundation is nonpartisan nonprofit. We work with Republicans to pass legislation. The PAC only supports Democratic moms. And
Okay.
frankly, in my opinion, if you're still a Republican after Donald Trump and you're seeing what's happening in your party, I have no words for you at this point. The Republican Party is not the Republican Party that it used to be. And yeah, no, anybody who is still a Republican at this point, I'm shocked by. It's a matter, if you could find me, and I'll tell you this, if you can find me a Republican mom that supports universal pre-K and paid family leave and universal childcare and common sense gun legislation.
Mhm.
And you can find me somebody who, is actually going to pass policies that make a difference for working people in this district, I would talk to that person. I've never met a Republican woman that supports
I
any
was
of
going
those.
to say, that sounds like a Democrat to me.
Exactly. They don't exist.
Right,
That's the problem.
right. Okay, this is an interesting question. How can we get our
Fun
kids?
questions, by the way.
What?
I said, these are fun questions.
Aren't they fun?
Like,
Anybody, listen, if anybody, I'm sorry, guys. There's two questions that people wrote. Let's see. Okay. Nina, let's see. Does Vote Mama support moms of adult children who don't need childcare or just young moms?
So we support any mom who has kids 18 or younger. If their kids are older than 18, but they are, if they have a developmental challenge or they're a dependent child or dependent person, and the mom is still taking care of them, we do support at that point. But other than that, moms with kids 18 or younger.
Okay, and I started asking a question. How can we get our kids to be excited about politics?
Take them with you. My daughter, when she was 3, she told me that she hates my meetings and she loves my protests. And it was one of my favorite things. And one of my favorite stories is, and I actually posted a photo of this. Hold on, I'm going to show you the photo. I posted it on Instagram the other day. We were at the bill signing for paid family leave in New York. She was 3. She was sitting next to me and she said, "Mama, why aren't you speaking?" And I said, "It's not my event, baby." And she looked at me genuinely confused because she had seen me speak at everything. And she went up to the podium in her Peppa Pig dress and she made me pick her up and she gave a speech. And this actually is the photo.
Oh,
And it's one of my absolute favorite memories of the campaign because she learned that running for office is just what mamas do. And she named Vote Mama. My kids used to run around screaming Vote Mama, which is why Vote Mama is now called that. But I took them everywhere. And they, she's writing a petition for school right now. She's 7 and they're writing a petition for school to make sure they have recycling bins. And I got so excited and giddy and like sat down and like helped her with it and everything. But she has spent so much time around women electeds. She's met Hillary Clinton, she's done for Elizabeth Warren, she's met Kirsten Gillibrand and Kathy Hochul, and she spent a lot of time with all of these incredible women. And she, when she comes up to my attic office, this is my attic, and she talks to all these incredible women running, through Zoom and online. And my son has gotten so used to this at this point that it's just part of their lives and they understand. I have weird kids who are like, older people in little kids' bodies. But Nicholas came in one day and I was working and he sat on this couch and he said, "Mama, are you working?" And I said, "I am, baby." And he said, "Oh," he goes, "So you're trying to make the world a better place for me and Neela?" And I'm like, "That's what I'm doing." And I'm thinking, I'm all like emotional. And then he leans back and he puts his hands like this. He goes, "Now you want to take a photo of me, right?" Yes, yes, sure. But you have to just take them with you so that they see it and they understand that their voice matters. Take them to protests. Take them to go talk to their legislators. My mom had me at our local county legislator's office when I was 3 stuffing envelopes. And I remember that.
My mom did the same thing. I remember protesting Vietnam. That's how old I am. So
I was protesting Shoreham at that point.
there you go. That's great. So here's a question. How can we get reluctant men to hear us politically?
Reluctant men. Because I'm curious to see what reluctant men means exactly.
And reluctant women too. I mean, how do you
Yeah.
how do you break through and get people to listen? I guess
You
that's
talk to people about issues that matter to them. I knocked on doors. We knocked on over 250,000 doors, and you get to know people. You ask them about their lives. You ask them about what's going on in their lives. What are their hardships? What matters to them? You get to know them. You ask them questions about their family, and you talk to them, and then you help them understand how certain policies actually affect their lives. There are a lot of people who think, they tune politics out. They don't understand that politics is personal. Politics is not a dirty word. It's literally just passing policy that affects your life. Um, when I remember going to a child care center when I was 6 months pregnant and doing the tours, and I met a woman who knew that her boyfriend was about to propose. And she calculated when they would get married, when they would have a baby, how long she would take for leave, when she would go back to work. She put her name on the wait list for 3 years down the road. I was 6 months pregnant. I never got off the childcare wait list. And that is something that affects not just women, but men as well. It's a personal issue that you now are experiencing. And so you talk to them about, wait a second, if we had paid family leave, if we actually had more affordable childcare, these things would be different. You know, you talk to people about the issues that matter to them, and then you explain to them how policy affects that. Honestly, it's just talking. That's all it is. That's how you get through to people.
Thank you. Are there serious plans to consider organized daycare such as Bright Horizons so that moms can pursue their work ambitions and their children can be measurably enriched? If so, did your legislation cover the cost for the moms running for office?
So the legislation that we're working on, the campaign funds for childcare, and it's not for a particular childcare. It basically says that the funds that you're raising for your campaign, that you can use it for childcare. So if you want to put your child in a daycare center, if you want to have a babysitter, if you want to have a nanny, it's up to you. It does not, the legislation basically just says that the money you raise for your campaign, you can choose how to spend that. You can use it on childcare. There are many places. We were having trouble passing this bill in Virginia, and it was part of a campaign finance reform package. And everybody was okay with the aspect of being able to use your campaign funds for childcare. But people were worried that they were going to lose their ability to use their campaign funds to buy pizzas for their staff and to have pizza parties. And that became a hot topic, and it got tabled because of that. But no, it would not cover the cost of childcare. It would allow you to use the funds that you are raising for childcare.
When you ran for Congress, you identified childcare costs as a major impediment to mothers running for office. Now that you have successfully changed the FEC procedures to permit campaign contributions to cover these costs, what do you see as the chief impediment today?
It's still a major impediment for women who are running for state and local seats, because we haven't gotten this approved in 24 states we're still working on. But honestly, the major impediment for moms running for office is, there are so many, but it's the judgment and the not being taken seriously. That is really something that you have to overcome as a woman. When you run with small children, you are immediately judged. I was told that I was a bad mother. There were leaders of my own party who, questioned my ability to take care of my kids. My son broke his leg when he was 1, about 2 months into my campaign. I will share this information now. It's not something I shared publicly for a while, because I got so attacked when my son broke his leg the first time, and everybody questioned whether or not I was, taking care of him correctly. And then a week before my primary, he broke his leg again. And we didn't talk about that publicly because I got so attacked the first time. And he was tested for osteogenesis imperfecta during my campaign. And he has osteogenesis imperfecta, which is basically brittle bone disease. He's now 5. He's broken his leg 4 times and his elbow once. And we go through treatments every quarter to strengthen his bones. And it's something that we now deal with. But I was so attacked for that. And there are so many mothers who've had similar experiences where they've been attacked for who they are as a mom. And, I was told that I used my kids as political props. If I took them with me anywhere, there was somebody who shared Soviet and Nazi propaganda of moms with children and compared it to photos of me with my kids. There's a mom that I know who ran for Congress who literally had supporters of her opponent throw candy at her toddlers on Halloween. There are people who, have been afraid to use their campaign funds for childcare, because then you actually have to put where your kid's childcare is on your filing, and it becomes public information. There were people who called my daughter's daycare center and her nursery school. Literally, they called the school. It happens all the time. And so that is something that all moms deal with, whether or not they're risking. I mean, the fact that Maggie Oliver had got death threats and had to move out of her home with her 12-year-old, that's something that you are dealing with no matter what. All women deal with this, but moms in particular. I think that's the hardest part. And the other hardest part is really the amount of time that goes into running, especially for Congress. It's difficult to make time for your children and to do everything that you need to do to win. And that's one major reason that we need campaign finance reform and publicly financed elections, because you're spending 40 hours a week fundraising And then you need to go out and talk to voters and knock on doors and go to every event. And there's very little time for your children. So that really, the fundraising is really one of the biggest impediments as well.
Let's see, locally in Great Neck, we have some very conservative mom electeds. We just recently had someone that just won, and she's got like 6 children. What do you, let's see, what do you or we do with about them? They do not stand for any of Vote Mama's issues.
Are they Republican?
Yeah.
You elect Democratic moms. You find a Democratic mom to run for that seat, tell them to apply for Vote Mama's endorsement, and you volunteer all of the time that you can, and you raise money. The other thing, honestly, is women. Oh, I have a screaming baby downstairs. Women.
Do you want to go? Do you need to?
No, my husband has and he can handle it. Women don't have the mentality of fundraising the way that women need to for other women candidates. When a man decides to run, he calls his friends and they all max out. And there's just this like built-in ingrained, I have to max out to my friend. And a lot of women will want to volunteer. Even women who have the capacity to give and to max out, a lot of those women think there is, more value in writing postcards. There is more value in raising funds. And until we actually change the way that campaigns are run and we have publicly financed elections, money, while it's a dirty word for a lot of women, you need to raise a lot of it. So if you can fundraise for candidates, that is the most important thing that you can do. Help raise money for candidates, throw a fundraiser, make sure that you're reaching out to friends to ask them to contribute. That is the hardest thing for women to do. And it is critical to make sure that they're winning seats. So with these conservative women, I'm very sorry. Just go and recruit some good Democratic moms to run. And we're happy to help.
Okay.
Yeah, Nita Gordon just says the Republicans are well funded. The Republicans are very well funded. The Democratic Party, they don't invest the way that they should. And there are a lot of candidates who are excellent candidates who don't get the support that they need. And that is really where the grassroots comes in and where you guys can make a huge difference.
Yeah. Is it okay if we switch gears and talk a little? Do you feel comfortable talking a little about the Ukraine and Russia?
God, yeah, I am heartbroken, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can there. But so I have lots of Ukrainian friends, and my neighbor's sister is actually a former member of parliament, and is trying to get out. And my daughter's best friend's grandmother is actually here. Thankfully, she lives in Lviv, and they're applying for TPS right now. And I have a lot to say about Ukraine, but please ask questions.
Yeah, well, you can feel free to talk. I mean, I do have specific questions, but if there's anything you want to just share about it. Okay, because I know some of your background, you have some interesting background with Russian studies and things like that. So, and one of the questions I had about the crisis, which is important because I think maybe people on this webinar could help out if we wanted to send money. I know that you did work with the United Nations.
I work on behalf of the United Nations Foundation Association.
Right. It just like, where could we, what can we do? I mean, I think there's so many of us here, they're so upset about what's going on and feel a little hopeless. I mean, I sent money to the UN, I think UNHR or something, I can't remember, but during these conflicts, what role does the UN play? Do you think they're effective? Are there organizations we can be sending money to that you think would really help out?
I have a list, actually. I can answer that. There's an organization called Voices of Children. I will send you the links. I will email them send them to everybody. Voices of Children, they provide psychological support to Ukrainian children. You can donate medical supplies. Revive Soldiers Ukraine. It's providing medical supplies to Ukrainian soldiers and provides supports to families. And then the Kyiv Independent is literally the best. It's for journalists. It's a Ukraine's English language media outlet. If you are not following Kyiv Independent, please do so. You can follow them online, and they have incredible journalists working with them. Those are 3 organizations that I personally have donated to. There's a Ukrainian Catholic Church, actually 2 of them on Long Island, that I have also been, they're collecting supplies. There's one, Chuck Levine's office is doing it as well. There's think it's in Rockville Center, but I could be mistaken about that. But I can find you that information as well.
Great, that'll be, yeah, if you send it,
A lot of people who are
yeah, I'll definitely send it. We can send it to all of our members because maybe that would help a lot. How effective do you think the UN is? I mean, is there anything that, you know,
I don't think the UN is effective in this. Putin is a war criminal. He needs to be taken to The Hague and tried for war crimes. He bombed a maternity ward at Children's Hospital today.
oh my God,
There were
oh my God.
babies under rubble, people who were in labor, and he bombed them today. He is an absolute war criminal, hands down. This is not a normal war. He has always done this. You know, going back to when he poisoned Yushchenko, he has always used these tactics, and he is, you know, he's an evil dictator. And we have Donald Trump calling him a savvy genius, and we have Republicans praising him, and we have Pompeo and Tucker Carlson and Trump all over Russian state media, and they're using them as propaganda. And there are no words, and it's very difficult for me to sit here and watch NATO not get involved. And at the same time, I understand that we don't want to have a nuclear war, but frankly, we're already in World War III. We're not on the brink of it. We're already in World War III, and Putin is not going to stop. So I don't have the answer. It's just, it's awful. It's awful, and I don't know. Putin is just evil. And I was thinking about this. I studied in Russia 19 years ago, and he was president then, and he's still president. And he has done so many terrible things. And he doesn't look at Ukraine as an independent country, and he has no intention of stopping. And he doesn't care if he kills everybody. He just wants the territory. And I don't think he's going to stop at Ukraine. I think he'll go into Moldova next. And then NATO is, and then it's all hell breaks loose. So I don't have anything helpful to say, to be honest. It's just a terrible situation.
Yeah. What do you think President Biden's best approach should be, like, given all the opposition he faces with the Republicans who are now, so many are for Putin?
Yeah, I think, as much as I don't want to criticize Biden, and I think he's doing a great job with sanctions, I think he took way too long to stop buying Russian oil. We were spending $700 million a day. We were funding terrorism by continuing to buy Russian oil. They stopped yesterday, and it was too long. So I'm glad that we finally stopped, but it needed to have happened 2 weeks earlier. Other than providing supplies at this point, I mean, they could have, you know, a humanitarian no-fly zone, but at the same time, I understand that this, you know, it would be seen as, you know, us threatening and trying to get into this. And Putin, I don't doubt that Putin would use a nuclear weapon. They have more nuclear weapons than anyone else, and I don't doubt that he would actually use it, which is a terrifying thing to think. So I don't really know, to be honest. I would like to see a humanitarian no-fly zone, but I also understand the dangers of that.
Yeah, it's a real problem now. You know, if you want to do that, but at the same time, you don't want to be blown up. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
The only people who can stop Putin is the oligarchs, and I don't see that happening. So I don't know what the solution is. But they're really the only people who can stop him.
Is there you know, there was an oligarch that actually offered money to have Putin killed recently. So he offered, I heard that, I don't know who it was, but I heard.
That's you, who was it?
I don't know who it was, but I heard that he offered $1 million. And it was like, well, that doesn't seem like enough to me, but like maybe somebody would go for it. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, so we're actually coming to the end of the hour. So, you know, I hate to end it on this sad part, because I'd like to just try to swing it back and just say, you know, it really is wonderful, the work that you're doing, and what Vote Mom is doing. I wasn't aware that how broad and supportive it is for all of these women so far, and all to come. So I really feel that the work that you're doing is just going to continue to create so many more wonderful politicians in office, and I'm certainly grateful to hear that you're taking your time to do that. And thank you. You know, I'm a mom myself. I'm also an elected official myself. And I understand that it's very hard to juggle everything, but you know, good for you. And I'm sure we're really excited to hear that you'll be running for office soon, because I think you'll
I
just
wouldn't say soon. I would say again, not necessarily soon. I have a lot to do with Vote Mama still.
okay. Well,
But
we'll be here.
eventually I'm running it.
We'll be here
What
when you need us.
what position do you hold?
I'm a commissioner of the Great Neck Water Pollution Control District.
Nice, very
So,
nice.
yeah, it's wonderful. I love my job. I'm also an environmentalist, so it's been terrific. It's a great place. So anyway, but really, it's so important to get more women out there and to get them elected, especially now with everything that's going on. So we all thank you from Reach Out America that you're doing this, and we hope for really wonderful success in the next elections. And we're all going to be behind you, all trying to push and get some really good people in office. So thank you for your time and all of your energy, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. So I just want to briefly just remind everybody that please join us next month. Our next speaker, April 27th, is going to actually be a school board forum, because there's a lot of things going on with our school board and with Great Neck, and it's going to be very interesting. So, and to join Reach Out America, just go to our website, reachout-america.com. And please hit the donate button and just write in the note that it's membership. It's only $45, the best game in town. And thank you all for being here this evening, and be well. And let's hope that next month I have a lot better news to report, and maybe we'll have some peace on this earth. Thank you so much, and have a great evening. Bye-bye. Thanks again.